The call came through on the wrong frequency, and that's what made me stop walking. I was halfway down the ridge trail doing a routine dusk sweep when my radio crackled to life, but it wasn't our standard channel. It was an old backup band we only used during wildfire season, and even then, rarely. The voice on the other end sounded calm, too calm, asking for assistance at marker 12, saying a hiker was injured and couldn't move. The problem was, marker 12 didn't exist anymore. It had been removed 3 years earlier after a landslide rerouted that entire section of trail. I stood there for a second, listening to the static settle, then keyed my mic and asked for identification. No response, just that hollow hiss. I checked my GPS anyway, out of habit. The coordinates for old marker 12 still lingered in the system, about a mile east, deep into an area we'd officially closed off due to unstable ground. No one was supposed to be out there. I switched to the main channel and called it in, asked if anyone else had picked up the transmission. Dispatch said no and told me to ignore it, probably interference from an old repeater tower up north. But something about the voice bothered me. It didn't sound distorted or broken like interference usually does. It sounded close, like whoever spoke was standing just behind me. I turned around, instinctively scanning the trees, nothing but pine trunks and long shadows stretching downhill. The sun was already dipping behind the ridge, and the temperature had dropped faster than expected. I should have headed back to the station. That was procedure. But instead, I adjusted my pack and started toward the old trail. I told myself it was just to confirm there was nothing out there, that I'd walk a few hundred yards, check for signs of recent activity, then head back. That's what I told dispatch too, even though they sounded irritated. The trailhead wasn't marked anymore, but I knew where it used to branch off. It was overgrown now, narrow and uneven, with loose soil where the landslide had shifted the terrain. My boots sank slightly with each step, and I had to watch my footing. About 10 minutes in, I noticed something odd. Fresh footprints. Not animal tracks. Human. Boot prints, deep and defined, heading in the same direction I was. That didn't make sense. We hadn't had any reports of hikers missing in this sector. I crouched down, checked the tread pattern. Not standard hiking boots. More like work boots, heavy, with a distinct square heel. The spacing suggested whoever made them was walking slowly, maybe carrying weight. I radioed it in again, gave dispatch the update. They told me to pull back, said they'd send a team in the morning. But by then, I was already too far in. I kept moving. The forest got denser the deeper I went. Less underbrush. More tall, tightly packed trees. It muffled sound in a strange way. Even my own footsteps felt distant. About 20 minutes later, I saw something that stopped me cold. A trail marker, old weathered wood, with the number 12 carved into it. It was nailed to a tree at eye level. That shouldn't have been there. I knew for a fact we removed every marker from this section. I was part of the crew that did it. I walked up to it, ran my hand over the carving. It wasn't old. The wood was aged, sure, but the number had been carved recently. The edges were sharp, clean. Someone had taken the time to recreate it. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. That's when the radio crackled again. Same frequency, same voice. "I see you found it." I froze. My grip tightened on the radio. "Identify yourself," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer, just that faint static again. I spun around, scanning the trees, listening for any movement. Nothing, not even wind. Then I noticed something else. Off to my left, about 30 yards out, was a small clearing, and in that clearing, a tent. It wasn't a standard camping setup. No fire pit, no gear scattered around. Just a single, dark-colored tent, zipped shut, sitting perfectly still. No movement inside. I approached slowly. Every step measured. My hand rested near the sidearm on my belt. "Park ranger," I called out. "If anyone's inside, respond." No answer. I circled the tent, looking for signs of activity. The ground around it was disturbed, but not in a normal way. It looked like someone had walked in tight circles repeatedly, over and over, wearing down the soil into a rough ring. I stopped at the entrance, hesitated for a second, then reached out and unzipped it. Inside was empty. No sleeping bag, no supplies, just bare ground. But in the center, there was something else. A small handheld radio, old model. The kind we phased out years ago. It was turned on, emitting a faint hiss. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands. The battery compartment was taped shut. As soon as I touched it, the static shifted, and the voice came through again. Clearer this time. "You're not supposed to be here." I dropped the radio immediately, stepping back. My heart was pounding now. This wasn't just interference. Someone was messing with me, and they were close. I backed away from the tent, scanning the tree line more aggressively now. That's when I saw him. Just for a second, a figure moving between the trees, maybe 50 yards out, tall, wearing dark clothing. He didn't run, didn't hide. Just walked, slow and deliberate, deeper into the forest. I raised my radio, switched to the main channel, called for immediate backup. This time, dispatch responded with urgency. They told me to disengage, return to the trailhead, and wait for assistance. I didn't argue. I turned and started back the way I came, moving faster now, not caring about noise or stealth. The forest felt different on the way back, heavier, like it was closing in. Every snap twig made me flinch. Every shadow looked like movement. About halfway back, I noticed something that made me stop again. The footprints. They were still there, but now they were facing the other direction. Like someone had walked back toward me, matching my path exactly. I hadn't seen anyone pass me. There was no way. I followed them with my eyes, and they led straight to where I was standing. Then they stopped. No continuation, no sign of where they went after. Just ended, right at my feet. My radio crackled again, but this time it was dispatch, asking for my status. I didn't respond right away. I was too busy staring at the ground, trying to make sense of it. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, behind me. Slow, measured. I turned around quickly, raising my light. Nothing. Just trees. But the sound had been real. Close. I didn't wait anymore. I moved, fast, back to the main trail, then all the way to the station without stopping. Backup arrived about 30 minutes later. We went back in together, a full team this time. But when we reached the clearing, the tent was gone. No footprints, no radio, no marker, nothing. It was like it had never been there. We searched the area for hours, found no signs of anyone, no tracks leading in or out, no disturbances, just untouched. Forest. Dispatch logged it as a false alarm, possible equipment malfunction combined with fatigue. They told me to take a few days off. I didn't argue. But here's the thing that still bothers me. When I got back to the station that night, I checked the logbook, standard procedure after any incident. And there, on the last line, was my name. Signed out at 1842. That's the exact time I heard the first transmission. The handwriting looked like mine. Same slant, same pressure. But I hadn't signed out yet. I was still on patrol. I showed it to my supervisor. He didn't have an explanation. Said maybe I filled it in earlier and forgot. But I don't forget things like that. Not part of the job. And even if I did, there was something else. Next to my name, in the notes column, was a short message. Just 4 words. Marker 12 is back. We checked the entire park again the next day. Every trail, every marker. There is no marker 12, not anymore. But sometimes, late at night, when the radios cycle through unused frequencies, I still hear that same voice come through for a second before the static cuts it off. Calm as ever, like it's standing right behind me, saying it found me first. I found the truck before anyone reported it missing, and that's what made it feel wrong from the start. It was parked just off a service road that doesn't show up on public maps. the kind we use for maintenance access and fire breaks. I was doing a perimeter patrol just after sunrise, checking for illegal campsites after a storm rolled through the night before. The road was still muddy, branches down everywhere, but the truck looked clean, too clean. No mud on the tires, no debris on the hood, like it had been placed there after the storm passed. Engine cold, doors locked, no plates. I signaled it once, then again, slower. There was a faint smell coming from inside. Not decay, not anything obvious, just something stale, like old fabric left in a damp room. I radioed it in. Dave dispatched the coordinates. They asked if there were any signs of a driver nearby. I told them no, but that didn't sit right with me. People don't just abandon vehicles this deep without a reason. I checked the ground around it. That's when I noticed the first strange detail. Footprints, but only on one side of the truck. Deep impressions in the soft mud, leading away toward the tree line. None coming back. I crouched down, studied them. Barefoot. That was the part that made me pause. The prints were clear enough to see toe definition, heel depth, even slight shifts in weight. Whoever made them had walked slowly, deliberately, like they ran. Weren't in a hurry. I stood up and looked toward the trees. Dense forest, thick undergrowth, still dripping from the rain. I called it in again, told dispatch I was going to follow the tracks a short distance, just to confirm direction. They hesitated, then gave me the go-ahead but told me to stay within radio range. I stepped into the tree line, following the prints carefully. The ground was soft, so they were easy to track at first. About 10 yards in, I noticed something else. The prints were spaced evenly, too evenly. No variation in stride, no signs of slipping or adjusting for terrain. It was like someone had practiced walking that way. After a few minutes, the forest started to thin out slightly, opening into a narrow clearing that cut through the trees like a corridor. The footprints continued straight down it. I kept going. That's when my radio crackled, but not with dispatch. It was a burst of static, then a voice, low and distorted, saying something I couldn't quite make out. I stopped, adjusted the dial, tried to clear the signal. "Dispatch, repeat last transmission," I said. No response, just static. Then silence. I checked the channel, still on the main frequency. I tried again, nothing. I felt that familiar tension settle in, the kind you get when something small doesn't add up. I kept moving, but slower now, more alert. The clearing stretched on longer than I expected, maybe 100 yards. At the far end, I saw something that made me stop. A backpack, sitting upright against a tree, like it had been placed there carefully. I approached it cautiously, scanning the area. No movement, no sound, just the occasional drip of water from the canopy above. I reached the back, knelt down, and opened it. Inside were clothes, neatly folded, a flashlight, a small first aid kit, and a laminated park map, one of ours. But the map had markings on it. Circles, drawn in red ink around specific areas, all of them off-trail zones, restricted sections. One of the circles was right where I was standing, another was near the truck, and a third, deeper into the forest, beyond any marked path. I stared at it for a moment, trying to make sense of it. That's when I noticed the handwriting. It wasn't rushed or messy, it was precise, almost mechanical. Every line straight, every letter evenly spaced. It didn't look like someone jotting notes. It looked like someone copying them. I stood up, turned slowly, scanning the trees again. That's when I saw it. Another set of footprints. These weren't barefoot, boot prints, and they were facing me. Well, I wasn't announcing, I was edited at the intent of me. Standing just at the edge of the clearing, partially obscured by brush. I hadn't heard anyone approach. I hadn't seen them before. They just appeared. I took a step back, instinctively putting space between me and those prints. Then I noticed something worse. They weren't fresh. The edges were slightly gray, softened, like they'd been there for a while, which meant whoever made them had been standing there, watching, long before I arrived. I grabbed the radio again, tried to call it in, still nothing. No signal. That's when I heard a sound behind me. Not loud, just a shift in the leaves. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. When I looked back at the boot prints, I felt my stomach drop. They were closer now. Not by much, maybe a foot or two, but enough that I knew I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't heard footsteps. I hadn't seen movement, but they had changed position. I didn't wait anymore. I backed away from the clearing, keeping my eyes on those prints, then turned and started moving back toward the truck. Faster now. The barefoot tracks were still there, leading me back the way I came, but something about them felt different. The spacing was off now, slightly uneven, like whoever made them had started to rush. I followed them anyway, pushing through branches, slipping on wet leaves. My radio crackled again, louder this time. The same distorted voice, but clearer. "You're off the path." I froze for half a second, then kept moving. "Return to your vehicle." The tone was calm, almost instructional, not threatening. That made it worse. I broke through the tree line and saw the truck again. Relief hit me for a second, until I noticed something had changed. The driver's door was open now. I was sure it had been closed before. I approached slowly, every step cautious. The interior looked the same at first glance, empty. But then I saw it, on the driver's seat, a pair of boots, muddy, laces undone. Positioned neatly side by side, toes pointing toward the steering wheel. I didn't touch them. I didn't need to. I already knew they matched the prints I'd seen in the clearing. I backed away, grabbed my radio, and finally got through to dispatch. The signal came back all at once, like it had never been gone. I reported everything, probably faster than I should have, but they understood enough to send backup immediately. I stayed by the truck, eyes on the tree line, waiting. The forest was quiet again, too quiet. No movement, no sound. Just that same heavy stillness. Backup arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 units. We went over everything together, then headed back into the woods to the clearing. But when we got there, the backpack was gone. The footprints were gone. Even the clearing looked different, like we'd stepped into the wrong place. We searched for hours, found nothing, not even a broken branch out of place. When we returned to the truck, the boots were still there, exactly where I'd seen them. We ran the VIN. No record, no registration, like the vehicle didn't exist. They towed it out anyway, logged it as an abandoned asset pending investigation. Officially, that's where the report ends. Unofficially, things didn't stop there. A few nights later, I was back on duty, doing a routine check at the station. Quiet shift. No calls. I was going through the logbook when I noticed an entry I didn't remember seeing before. Same day as the incident. Same time I was in the clearing. It listed a secondary unit responding to the area. No unit number, no ranger name, just a note. Subject, relocated. I asked around the next morning. No one knew anything about it. No one had written it. And here's the part I can't explain. At the bottom of that entry, there was a small smudge of mud. Dark, thick, like the kind from that service road. I didn't think much of it at first, until I looked closer. It wasn't just a smudge. It was the partial imprint of a footprint, barefoot. And the toes were pointed toward the inside of the page, like whoever left it had been standing right over the logbook, reading along as they wrote. The distress call came in under my name, and I hadn't said a word. I was sitting in the station finishing a routine equipment check when dispatch radioed back, asking me to confirm the emergency beacon activation near Ridge Sector C. They said I'd just reported it 30 seconds earlier. I hadn't even touched my radio. I told them there must be a mistake, but they insisted a signal came through on my ID, clear and logged. That's when I felt it, that subtle shift, like something had already started moving before I noticed. I grabbed my gear anyway. Procedure says you respond first, question later. The location they gave was about 2 miles out, near an old fire observation trail we rarely used anymore. It wasn't officially closed, but we didn't send hikers there. Too many blind turns, poor visibility, and the trail markers had a habit of disappearing. I signed out, double-checked my radio channel, and headed out on foot. The sky was overcast, low clouds pressing down through the trees, muting everything. Even the usual morning sounds felt distant. About 10 minutes in, I checked my radio log out of habit. That's when I saw it. A transmission stamped under my ID, time marked exactly when dispatch said, "No audio file attached." Just a blank entry labeled, "Emergency Beacon, Manual Trigger." I hadn't triggered anything. My radio didn't even have that function enabled. I kept working, faster now, scanning the trail more carefully. The ground was soft from recent rain, which made tracking easier. That's when I noticed the first disturbance. Not footprints. Not exactly. More like sections of the trail where the soil had been pressed down in long, uneven patches, as if something heavy had been dragged across it. The marks didn't follow a straight line. They weaved slightly, crossing the trail then rejoining it again. I crouched down, ran my hand over one of them. Fresh, the soil was still damp beneath the surface layer. I radioed dispatch, told them I was seeing signs of possible injury or equipment drag. They asked if I had visual confirmation of a victim. I said no, not yet. They told me to proceed with caution and keep updates coming. I moved on, following the marks uphill. The trail narrowed as it climbed, branches closing in, visibility dropping. About halfway up, I heard something behind me. A faint crunch, like a step on wet leaves. I turned quickly, scanning the path I'd just come from. Nothing. No movement, no sound. I stood there for a moment, listening. Silence. I told myself it was just debris shifting, maybe a branch settling after the rain. It didn't feel like that, but I kept moving anyway. The drag marks continued, but they started to change. They became more defined, more consistent, like whatever had been moving was gaining direction. And then, suddenly, they stopped, right in the middle of the trail. No continuation, no sign of where they went next. Just ended. I stood there, trying to figure out what I was looking at. That's when I noticed something off to the side. A piece of equipment. A handheld emergency beacon. The same model we issued to rangers. It was lying just off the trail, partially covered in leaves. I picked it up carefully. The casing was scratched, damp, but intact. The activation light was off. I checked the ID number on the back. It matched mine. My stomach dropped. I turned it over again, checking for any sign of tampering. Nothing obvious. But it wasn't mine. Mine was clipped to my vest, right where I'd left it. I checked anyway. Still there. 2 identical beacons, same ID, same wear patterns, even the same small dent near the corner from when I dropped mine last winter. That's when the radio crackled again. Not dispatch this time. My own voice. Beacon triggered. "Need assistance?" I froze. The transmission was clear, unmistakable. It sounded exactly like me. Same tone, same pacing. But I hadn't said it. I hadn't even keyed the mic. I slowly raised my radio. "Dispatch, did you copy that?" I asked. A pause. Then they responded, confused. "Copy what?" They hadn't heard it. I looked down at the second beacon in my hand. The activation light flickered once, then went dark again. I dropped it immediately, like it might burn me. That's when I heard footsteps again, closer this time, behind me. I turned sharply, heart pounding, scanning the trees. Nothing, but the sound didn't stop. It continued for a few seconds after I turned, like whoever was making it didn't care if I heard. Then it stopped abruptly. I backed up slowly, keeping my eyes on the trail. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, maybe 30 yards further along, the trail curved around a large rock formation. And just at the edge of that curve, I saw a figure step out briefly, then disappear behind the rock. Same uniform, same pack, same posture. It looked like me. I didn't move for a second. My brain tried to reject what I'd just seen, but the details were too specific. The way the strap sat on the shoulder, the slight tilt of the head when walking. It wasn't close enough to see the face, but I didn't need to. I knew what I'd seen. I raised my radio again, voice tighter now. "Dispatch, I have a visual on another individual. Possible impersonation. Same uniform as mine. They told me to hold position and wait for backup. But I couldn't. Not with that thing moving further up the trail. I started forward, slower now, more controlled. Every step felt deliberate. I reached the rock formation and edged around it carefully. The trail beyond was empty. No figure, no movement. But there was something else. A logbook, sitting on a small wooden post we used as an informal checkpoint years ago. I hadn't seen one there in months. I asked,
"Please have all the way together, or made the way in the mood."
I hadn't seen one there in months. Approached it cautiously, opened it. The pages were damp, slightly worked. The last entry was fresh, written in my handwriting. Same slant, same pressure. It read, "Reached subject, situation contained, time stamped, 5 minutes into the future." I stared at it, trying to process what I was seeing. That's when I heard the radio again, my voice, calm and steady. "You're not needed anymore." I slammed the logbook shut and stepped back. The forest felt wrong now, too still. Like everything was waiting. I didn't follow the trail any further. I turned and started back toward the station, faster than before, not caring about noise or protocol. The footsteps followed again, just out of sync with mine, like an echo that didn't quite match. I didn't turn around this time. I just kept moving. When I finally reached the station, backup was already there, confused about my earlier call. I told them everything, as clearly as I could. We went back out together, full team, but the trail was clean. No drag marks, no second beacon, no logbook, nothing. Like it had never happened. They checked my equipment, ran diagnostics on my radio. No anomalies, no unauthorized transmissions. Official report said equipment glitch, possible stress response. They told me to take a few days off. I agreed. But here's the part I can't get past. When I came back to duty, I checked my gear locker. Everything was where I left it, except for one thing. My emergency beacon. The small dent near the corner was gone. The casing was smooth, like it had never been dropped. I asked maintenance if they'd replaced it. They said no. Serial number matched my original. Same ID, same everything, but no dent. And when I checked the radio log again, that blank transmission entry was still there. Only now, it had audio attached. I played it once. It was my voice, just like before. But at the very end, after the message, there was something else. A second voice, quieter, almost overlapping mine, saying the same words just a fraction of a second earlier, like it had spoken first and I had only repeated it.